Everybody, welcome to the show today. Welcome to Monster Territory. And we have our first ever guest here on Monster Territory. In case you are just finding us, we were Fenway Faithful before. We are now with the Foul Territory Network. And we got David Sandlin on the show. David, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on, man. Really do appreciate it. It's funny. I was looking at the date today and I'm thinking, wow, it's been almost 1 year to the date where you got traded from the Kansas City Royals in the John Schreiber trade. How is this whole, if you were to give me like a quick little rundown of this past year, what has this past year been like for you?
It's definitely been a whirlwind. Learning a lot of new faces really quickly. Obviously joining right at spring training. Then hit the ground running with everybody over here with Boston. It was a lot of fun to put the faces to names and being such a great historic organization. But it was a whirlwind. You don't ever think you're going to get traded, and the next day it just happens, and you got to rock with it. The industry's a business, and you got to keep going.
Yeah, I got to ask. I'm always curious. These are actually some of my favorite stories where when the trade happened, where were you? What were you doing? Kind of give us the rundown on that.
So I was down in Dallas for Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma's opening weekend. It was the opening weekend for them. They had the tournament down there. I think it was them, Tennessee, some other Big 12 schools, stuff like that. And they already played the Friday game, so I actually had talked to the amateur scouts and stuff from the Royals the day before. Everything was cool. Then I wake up Saturday morning from a phone call from the director of player development with the Royals, telling me I got traded. It was about 9 in the morning. We were supposed to go. Me, my dad, my buddy that were all in the hotel room. We're supposed to go golf. I got quickly changed, which thankfully it was 40-something degrees outside, so I don't know how enjoyable it would have been to golf. But I knew I had a full day of phone calls ahead of me, so we switched from golf and then ended up going down to the game down there. And one of my roommates' dads was a huge supporter of me, and I think he was more hyped than anybody. I guess he was a closet Red Sox fan, and he was really pumped when I showed up to the game to talk my ear off about the Red Sox and everything.
So who was the guy from the Red Sox to give you the call? What was it? Was it Craig Breslow or?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to everybody. I talked to Abe, of course, Breslow. I mean, I honestly forget exactly who I talked to that day. After that first phone call, everything just kind of came at me so quick, and I was just thinking, what's going on? I didn't expect this. My immediate thought was, don't let it be traded for cash considerations, because they didn't tell me first who I got traded for. And so to see it was for Schreiber, it was a really cool deal. Obviously, I think he's a great pitcher, and he showed it this year. Pitched really well for the Royals. So I think it was a good fit for both teams. But yeah, it was a whirlwind. I don't remember a lot of the phone calls. I just remember it was Saturday I got traded, and Monday was when I was supposed to be going to Arizona. I just flipped it right to Fort Myers and drove down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine, right? You're just coming off a full season. You're earlier in your career, and then you get a phone call saying you're going to the Boston Red Sox of all places. But kind of looking back on this past year, without really looking at any of the stats, adjusting to a new organization, what was that like? What were some adjustments that you had to make? Making a change like that very early in your career.
I think the biggest change would be that. Working on stuff during the season, working on it in games, using the games more as a development piece. Obviously, since I didn't get the full offseason with the Red Sox, and we jumped into spring training, and they obviously had a little bit of a different path than the Royals had for me. So I had new pitches coming in, and it was just kind of a work in progress all last year. So going through the season, adjusting to stuff, and every new goal thrown at me every other week or whatever it was definitely a challenge to do during the season. But it was a lot of fun to do that.
After going to the Red Sox, because they've really revamped their pitching department over the last couple of years, where there's some things, not taking anything away from the Royals, but was there anything different that you really enjoyed when it came to working on the pitching side of things after coming to the Red Sox?
Yeah, I feel they were very, very hands on. Obviously, you had guys like Willard would come out to the affiliates every so often. Then you have the other pitching coordinators like Nagati come out but you would also have phone calls with those guys once a month to talk about your goals and everything and work through those things, develop pitches. And it was like I said, like if you beat one goal, they're like, all right, here's the next one, go get it. And I found that really cool to just like nothing was ever enough, which is exactly how it should be. You should never be satisfied. So you keep tackling goals and keep going at whatever they throw at you.
So I got to ask, after, I would imagine like you're going to a new organization. It's almost like going to a new school, when you were a kid, after you came to the Red Sox, who were the guys that you became close with?
Luckily, I knew some guys in the organization coming over. Wyatt Olds was at Oklahoma a few years before me. So I talked to him before, so he kind of helped me throughout spring training. Michael Fulmer signed a minor league contract with the Red Sox. He kind of partially runs the facility I train at during the off season.
Yeah.
Then Jared Godman, who was with the team when I was first there, was on the roster with me in the World Series team for Oklahoma.
Mm. Well, on the field, there were some ups and downs for you this past year, but you put up some, really solid numbers when it came to the strikeout walk ratio, right under 13 strikeouts per nine, just under 3 walks per nine. Very good slash line, very good ratio there. But when there were some times where you had some ups and downs. Looking back on this past year on the field, what were some takeaways for you from a developmental point of view?
I think it was really encouraging to see the stuff was in the right place. It just comes down at the end of the day to execution. A lot of times, a lot of the damage came on pitches I just didn't execute, left it to middle, or I'd get behind in counts and then have to battle back, and the counts got predictable. I also think that comes with working on certain pitches. Things start to get skewed. So hitters be able to sit on those pitches, knowing that you're working on them, they can do a little bit more damage. So I had to take everything with a grain of salt. Obviously, talking with the pitching development, and they're like, "Hey, we're working on stuff. Like you still are showing you have elite stuff, and it plays in the zone. So we're not worried." So just having to get out of my own head with that kind of stuff, seeing that stuff happen.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned earlier as well. The trade happened, later in the offseason last year. Now that you've had, a full year under your belt with the Red Sox, and now that you're having a full offseason, would you say it's like night and day how you're going about things this offseason compared to last?
Oh, yeah. No, I feel way more prepared going into spring training, not having a bunch of question marks I at least know the organization now. Just going in, being able to communicate all offseason with Willard and the other guys on the pitching development side. Communicate with Shed on the strength and conditioning, and then obviously putting my body in the right place. I feel really prepared and excited to get into spring training and hit the ground running.
So what are some things, like little things you've been working on, whether that's, in the gym, on the mound this offseason? What have you been doing to really tackle those adjustments?
I think the biggest thing on the pitching development side is just separating the pitches and getting the consistency, getting the feel for them. Obviously, like I said, I think 3 out of the 5 pitches I threw last year were new pitches or new grip. So just getting that repeated feel for them to where I can execute them no matter what the count is. I can throw them 0-0 or I can throw them 3-0 or 0-2, whatever it is. And then obviously 2 years in the minor leagues, I've been on the IL at least for a little bit twice now. So just getting the mobility right, getting the strength right, getting force production where we need it to be or where we think it's optimal at. Stuff like that to put my body in the best position possible on the mound.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of the mound work this offseason, and I got to ask, too. There's one video that's floating around. I'm going blank on where it is exactly, but there's this awesome border collie that is hanging out at the facility you're at, trying to be Jason Varitek. What is the story on that border collie?
So that's Bailey, or we call her Coach Bailey. It's the facility dog. I mean, she's been up there longer than I've been up there, and she is the next coming of Airbud. Like she's hands on. She'll always be in the cage with you when you're playing normal catch, or like if we're playing catch with a football, you can toss it to her. She'll hit it off her nose, toss it back to you. Um, and she's not scared of baseball, no matter how hard you throw it. She'll be behind that net, barking, letting you know how you're doing on the mound. So she's awesome. We got a couple more up there. They just got a new one, Oscar, the wiener dog.
Oh.
He's tiny, but he'll probably be back there with Bailey at some point in the future too.
Well, I love that. Like I competed in powerlifting growing up, and the gym that I went to, everyone always brought their dogs. Right? It wasn't like a normal commercial gym like a Crunch Fitness. It was kind of like these garage gyms where people go to CrossFit and whatnot. I always love that, people bringing their dogs. But for this offseason, also you participated in the rookie development program for the Red Sox. You had a lot of guys going out there, right? Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, Hunter Dobbins, Narvaez was there as well. How was that experience for you? Kind of run us through that. What were you doing there? Like, kind of give us the rundown on that.
Yeah, no, it was pretty surreal, and it was a blessing to be a part of that opportunity. Them to invite me out, obviously, I think very highly of guys like Roman and Casey and Dobbins and Varez, who's been terrific coming over. Great guy. Chris Nixon is also just a stud. So being there with those guys is awesome. Getting to play with a lot of those guys in the season, and then being around the big league team, it felt like a little starstruck at times, because at times I still see myself as that 17-year-old kid that just loves baseball and grew up watching it. So being around guys like Houck and Liam Hendricks and Garrett Whitlock, talked to him quite a bit, meeting Crochet. Like it was really, really cool to be around them and pick their mind about the side of pitching, and then interact with the fans. Like Boston has a very passionate fan base for whatever sport it is, and it's the city of champions. So it was nice to get out there and meet the fans and interact with them and do the community service, but also kind of like operate the life of a big leaguer for 4 or 5 days. It was a nice experience to do that. It was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I've always loved when they've done that program. It's always when the off season's in its coldest time, you got the rookie development program, and it's like, oh, cool. And for some of the guys that participated there, right, Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, those two guys have been turning a lot of heads over the last year. What are your thoughts on these guys coming into 2025, and maybe some other guys that you within the organization? Anyone else besides those two that maybe you think could make an impact this coming year?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously think everybody that was there can make a big league impact this year. But yeah, Christian and Roman, those guys are big leaguers. I mean, they're studs, and they showed it on the field last year. Marcelo's right there with them. He gets healthy, gets his right. Like, he's going to be right behind him. But no, I think we're loaded top to bottom in the development side, especially with some of the new draft guys. Got to work out with Tully this offseason. Really exciting to see what he does on the mound this year.
Yeah.
Playing with guys like Early last year, Mullins, Isaac Coffey, Dalton Rogers, Cooper Adams, all those guys are studs. Like we have a loaded system, and it's really excited to see all the young guys, especially with the new additions that we got in the offseason, ready to get after it this year.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, obviously I cover the Red Sox, not trying to be biased, but when you take a look at this farm system, it's not even just Roman Anthony, Campbell, and Meyer. It's all these other guys like yourself and Hunter Dobbins. I feel like someone like him is being slept on a lot. There's so many guys that you like you said, you're loaded. You can just go down the list and you're thinking, oh man, this guy could even maybe help out this year at the major league level. It's an exciting time for the Red Sox and their fans. From your point of view for this offseason so far, what do you think of the Red Sox moves? Bringing in a pig like Garrett Crochet, like Lou Merloni likes to call him. Making a lot of moves with Walker Buehler. Narvaez was another one. What are your thoughts on the offseason so far for the Red Sox?
I think it was great. I think we weren't obviously far off last year. We showed the ability to compete, and there was a lot of grit on the team, and there was a lot of talent on the team. Going and picking up two phenomenal starters like that, and just keeping the core and then having those young guys come up. I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year, and the fans are gonna get to learn a lot of new names and see a lot of winning.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me, go back even 10 years ago when, guys like Mookie were just coming up, Rafi were just coming up, right? It's an exciting time. But for yourself here in 2025, what are your goals here? What are you looking to accomplish this coming year, both on and off the field?
I think the first and foremost is just stay healthy. I think that's the biggest thing I got to prove is just the endurance over a full year, especially wanting to be a starter. Just you get it through the year healthy. And then the biggest thing I think would be execution, late in counts. And I think that's going to help me limit the long ball, and it's going to even out those stats that weren't so pretty last year. But no, I think just go out there and compete my ass off every day, day in and day out, and give my team the best ability to win. That's the goal, and it's never changing.
I also wanted to ask this too. I forgot to ask this a little earlier. Obviously, you got the gas, you got the velo. What are some pitches that you have been paying attention to this offseason? Have you been kind of working them all in, or is there a certain one or two that you've been working on?
Definitely been focusing on splitter, getting that more consistent on the lower vert to get that separation from the heater. I think it's a real weapon I can use for both sides of the plate. And then played around with the new curveball grip that's showing real promise, so I'm excited about that. And then touching up the slider and bringing in a cutter now. And the cutter seems like it's in a good spot, so I'm excited to bust that out in games too.
Well, cool, man. Yeah, well, we're very excited for you. When you came over, that's the one thing with the Red Sox organization over the last few years where they've been trying to build up the pitching within the organization. And when you came along, I was like, "Ooh, all right, sweet, we got a guy here." So I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited for the direction of the organization. Excited for the Red Sox in 2025. I want to thank you for coming on here today, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. Anytime you'd like to come on, just give me a shout, all right?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.